So I have to ask, what's next? Aside from the project you just showed us, what's the next destination for Devin Graham?
I've been working like gnarly hard on these paid projects, and I have so much. Not I'm not saying more fun because I like bigger budgets to do stuff compared to a $0 budget project. But I love not also working with a brand where there's no pressure and I can just create exactly what I want and not have to like please anybody. So the project I've been wanting to do, and it might sound ridiculous, but I've wanted for a long time to do this Pokemon fan film with a puppet. So we had like a actual like big size puppet built that I'm like really, really excited about. So that's what we're doing next month or the month behind that. But I'm just right now, I'm just genuinely excited about all these like not paid passion projects that I have planned that I have to keep on pushing to the side. So for me, my break now is to do these passion projects. What I've seen is a lot of times those passion projects, the ones I do for free, are the ones that bring in the bigger opportunities and the bigger projects. A little side example of that is one of my ultimate goals was to work with Nintendo, but I couldn't get Nintendo to see me. So I did a Mario Kart fan film and ended up getting 30 million views. And then they reached out to me and then they hired me to do like 2 commercials for them. So by doing things I was passionate about, it created opportunities from a business standpoint.
Awesome. Well, I know we've got about 15 minutes left and we've got a bunch of questions in the chat pod. So I am going to start seeing these up here. And I have to ask while I'm pulling this up, with all of the props and costumes, you've got to have like a warehouse full of props and costumes, right?
This is our warehouse. All these different offices back here, we have like, they're just full of costumes, props, mannequins, and even back there, we have go-karts with like tanks built on them and all that fun stuff. So it's just, it's a fun process.
Amazing. All right. Well, we've got a bunch of questions. All right. First question. What is your favorite video you have ever done?
Sadly, it's usually the one that has the most views is the ones that I'm most excited about. So my Assassin's Creed ones, a lot of my earlier stuff starting off, our Fortnite video was like a big video that I spent a lot of money on that wasn't sponsored, but it ended up getting 44 million views, and it was storytelling instead of just stunts. So for me, I wanted to get known as a storyteller and not just a stunt filmmaker. So for me, that was like a bigger deal just because I put a lot of time and money and like financial risk into that. So I'd say those are all up there.
Do you have any tips for making intro sequence for a YouTube channel?
I don't, just because I don't have an intro sequence for my own channel. We used to have like our logo pop up, but then it was like, it has to grab somebody. So just seeing text pop up wasn't enough in our age now. So the way we do our intros now is every intro is different. It's like The Simpsons, where at the beginning of every Simpsons, there's one little shot that's completely different when they sit on the couch. Same thing for us. Every time you watch one of our videos now, it's usually like the 5 seconds of the best clips at the very beginning. So we've seen a lot of success with that. But as far as like a general intro, I don't have any experience with that.
Okay. Next up, so we've got a smaller YouTuber in the audience that isn't seeing a ton of success and is starting to have that motivation churn. How do you keep the motivation up? I know you've touched on that a little bit, but any words of advice?
Yeah, so I think that the first thing is just make sure you're still doing what you love to do. So if you're just doing something to have success and it doesn't, you're going to feel really discouraged about it. So just make sure it's something you love. So when we launched our other channel during COVID, it was called Visual Escape, and it's just nature videos. We do a video a day now for the last 2 years, I think, consistently since COVID. And that channel took a long time to even start taking off. Like, we weren't seeing anything, like maybe we make a cent from it a day. So I was feeling really discouraged because we were definitely putting a lot more money and time into it. But now 2 years later of putting out daily content, we're now having videos that are 2 years old and now start to skyrocket up. So it's like, just keep on doing what you love to do and fingers crossed, because it is this game of like, how far can you push yourself before you want to give up? For us, I've been lucky where a lot of times it just happened, but other times it hasn't. Even for us, we'll put out a video and it bombs, but then 2 years later, it blows up out of nowhere. So for me, it's just like, make sure you're creating what you love to do and cross your fingers that it takes off eventually. So I know it's not like the best answer, but for me, that's what's kept me motivated to keep on going, is just keep that mindset that I'm creating what I love to do.
Do you have any tips for university students that are trying to get involved with production?
I would say volunteer as much as you can on everyone's shoot, no matter how small of a role it is. You can apply to the film school I went to, it's BYU in Utah. You can only apply twice. I got rejected the first time. So I was already heartbroken. So I was like, I'm going to prove to them that I am the best film student there. So I volunteered on everyone's shoot. I was doing like craft service. I was cooking hamburgers, like whatever it took. And then everyone was having me on all their shoots. And then by the time I dropped out of college, film school my last year, I was focused on director of photography. I was shooting everybody's project just because I had made a name for myself because I was volunteering on everyone's shoot. So I think that's huge, is just getting your name out there by offering value.
I would agree with that. This is a really good question that's got a bunch of upvotes as well. What do you look for in hiring someone onto your crew as either a DP, an editor, or a sound engineer, maybe visual effects as well? What are those things that you look for?
I'd say deadlines are huge and quality. So whenever most of the people we've hired on, especially at the start, were not film students whatsoever. Like that didn't matter to me. What mattered is that they could just create good content. So one of the guys I just posted on social media, he showed up and he was like, yeah, I do YouTube videos. And I was like, oh, that's cute. And then I went home and I looked at his channel and I was like, this guy's amazing. So it's just like putting yourself out there and then getting seen. And then we did another thing where we're like, hey, we're hiring. We had 10 people show up at our office. We gave them each a hard drive with a different project. And we said, just turn it around as soon as you can. Two of those people had it edited within 12 hours. We gave it to them in the evening. They had it edited that morning, and it was amazing. So those are the two people we hired because they took it serious, they were fast, and they exceeded our expectations. So those for me are really important. When we just hired someone in LA, because we hired a producer, we hired the full shebang. I'm not LA based. So what I did is I liked like a YouTube channel. Daniel is his name, Sub Overhype is a big YouTube channel. I love their channel. So I reached out and said, I want you to produce this. Even though I never really worked with them before besides one other project. And I was like, who would you suggest as DP? He gave me like 5 big names because the DP is like huge for how a project turns out. And then I kind of, it was almost like a dating thing where we jumped on a Zoom call and we just like talked like this. And I was like, okay, this guy's really passionate and interested. This is the guy I want to go with. Not just because I love his work, but I can tell he's a good, genuine human being that's really passionate about it. So those are all like important things that I look for. But it's almost like a dating thing where you're like figuring it out like just by getting to know somebody, but also getting to know their work.
This is an interesting one. So with all of the niche content on all of the various channels out there, would you have any advice for someone who is looking to switch whatever their niche focus is?
It's a bigger question.
Yeah.
Give me another example. Give me an example that you were thinking.
Like if someone's creating content for one specific type of, let's say, beauty videos, but they want to change the type of content that they're creating to maybe more action sports related. Okay. I know that those are very vast, different.
They are very different, which would be rad to see that. So for me, when I started, because when you're starting, you don't have a name for yourself. You're just trying to figure out your own voice as it is. So I was jumping on Google Trends, and you jump on Google Trends, and it'll show you like the top things that people are searching for. Okay, Taylor Swift has a new album coming out midnight. That pops up as like the top trends. So you can also do that for video games. So even when we name a video or looking at something, like for example, a video game, because I'm big into video games, Zelda and Link, they're two big characters from a video game. We're like, should we call the video Zelda or Link? So we'll go onto Google Trends. We can type both words in, and it will tell us what is being searched more, what's more trendy, what's more popular. So your example, as far as like beauty to action sport or whatever that may be, for me is like jumping into Google Trend, and I would type in things you're interested in and just see what is more trending or what's more popular. But like even the Sonic the Hedgehog video we released, it wasn't a coincidence when we released that video. We released it the same week that Sonic the movie came out. Another video we shot in Uzbekistan, Prince of Persia, Parkour, it's already done. It's been done for 5 months, but I haven't released it because they were going to release the game, but then they got kind of postponed. And in 2 weeks, Ubisoft, who makes the game, they have a big announcement. It's going to be for Assassin's Creed, but we're also hoping for Prince of Persia. And once they make that announcement and we know that's going live, we're going to release that video that's already done when that goes live because it's going to be trending and popular. So everything we're doing is genuinely calculated.
Oh my gosh, I would have never thought to look at Google Trends. I think that is like one of the secret pro tips out here. So speaking of video games, Have you ever thought of doing Dragon Ball Z / Dragon Ball Super in real life?
Yeah, so I know there's a huge audience for that. For me, sadly, I never grew up on Dragon Ball Z, but what I did grow up on is My Hero Academia, which I know is different, but it's still because I love anime. So for me, I think the next like real life anime style thing I do would be My Hero Academia. For me to do something like Dragon Ball Z, for example, I would just have to research it a ton and like fall in love with that type of content. Otherwise, I normally just don't take it on. So for me, Genshin Impact, essentially, that is an anime brought to life. And that was someone else paying for it. So it's going to give me a good idea of like how that could look on a bigger scale, and then I would take that down and kind of make something of my own. But like even my mouse pad, it's My Hero Academia character, so I'm a big anime nerd at heart, no question about it. But Dragon Ball Z, it's not out of the question, but I would just have to watch a bunch of episodes and see if I fell in love with it. Like a good example is Fortnite. When I saw that as like the big trend 3-4 years ago, I was like, I've never played Fortnite before, but that doesn't mean I'm not gonna like it. So I spent like a month playing it, and I'm like, okay, this game's legit. And then I was able to like make a video for the fans because I was a fan of it. But I feel if anything I'm gonna take on, I need to generally be a fan of it before I can actually do it justice.
Yeah, I feel like that's part of what makes a lot of your videos feel organic because they're made by fans for fans.
Yep.
Here's a good question. What is one company that you would like to work with but haven't yet?
I would say Sony PlayStation, I think would be just because I also grew up on Sony PlayStation. Um, I think they're probably the bigger one, and just more opportunities to work with Nintendo. I'd be like beyond stoked because Nintendo to me is like was the ultimate company to work for. So when I've had 3-4 big opportunities to work directly with Nintendo, and for me that was like a dream project.
Okay. Have you ever lost footage that you had to reshoot?
Well, I've lost hard drives as I shared at the beginning, and that was like for a documentary. And I never got those. I mean, when you're recording someone telling their life story and you lose that, it's hard to go back to them and say, "Can I record that life story one more time again?" I know it's really painful for you to share, but I'd like to do it again. So I actually never got those back. We've had a couple times where some cards have gotten corrupt, but we didn't really lose everything. Iceland, when we were in Iceland, we were like backing up the hard drive, and while the hard drive was being backed up, because we were driving in cars while we were backing it up, while it was being backed up, someone opened the door and the hard drive flew out the car and shattered while it was being backed up. So we lost that. But those are really the only like big horror stories. Generally speaking, though, everything's backed up, so it prevents that. Just during the transfers when it gets a little sketchy.
Speaking of horror stories, would you ever do a Halloween / horror themed video? It's coming up to October, so I feel like that's a
Yes.
relevant question.
When 360 was cool back in the day, we did a Five Nights at Freddy's. We did do last year. We did a Pokemon horror story because my whole thing is like I love Pokemon as well. So what can we do? And I've never seen like a horror story on it. So we did. It's not like I'm not a slasher person though. So if I were to do something in the horror genre, it would have to be on something I already love. Um, so I don't have anything in the plans right now. If the closest thing I would do would be like Luigi's Mansion, which is all based on like ghosts, but it's a very cartoony, kind of silly but fun.
I like that idea. How do you manage work-life balance?
I make it up as I go. And I communicate because I have my wife and my 2-year-old son. And during COVID, things were slow, so I was able to spend more time with them. But it was also more stressful because like, how are we going to survive this? And then the last couple of months have been so busy that I've hardly been able to see them. So it's just trying to communicate as much as I can with them. And now that things are starting to slow down, it's like I'll leave home earlier, I'll stay home earlier, and like we're planning to go to Disney World at the end of this month, just as a family for like 9 days. So it is like then I get a lot more time with them. So it's this weird balancing act that we're figuring it out. Some weeks are good, some weeks I need to work on them more, but it's definitely a huge part. And it's like when I can, I love to have my family involved. Like when I knew I wasn't seeing my family for like 2.5 weeks of shooting straight, my wife and son were like showing up on set and like hanging out. And like those were the moments where like my heart was like jumping for joy, because I love having them a part of that and being with them when I can. But sometimes you got to work and you can't be at both places at once. I'm not sure that answered the question, but I'm still figuring it out. But if you guys know, let me know. One day
Yeah,
at a
I
time.
think COVID definitely threw a wrench in everyone's mix, even the people who did have it figured out,
Yeah.
to be fair. So let's see, what else? Do you publish stock footage to any other platform other than Adobe Stock?
Everything I do is through Adobe Stock. And the only other thing I do outside of Adobe Stock is like when a television company reaches out to me. But I thought it'd be a lot cleaner just to have it in one place because people come to me and I'm like, if it's a bigger company like Samsung is like, I'll license this out directly. Anyone else, I just send them to Adobe Stock. It just makes life easier. But yeah, the only place I exist that people can purchase our stuff, we have like a full landing page. Like if you go on Adobe Stock, Devin Super Tramp, you'll see a ton of our content all out there. So it's there.
This is actually a question that someone said in the audience, but we must be thinking the same thing because this was my question. How do you find these parkour athletes and actors?
Yeah, so I just jump on social media and see what people are doing, and it's usually word of mouth. Most of the people I work with is just word of mouth. Hey, I'm looking for someone that does this. And one of the world's best parkour athletes, he just happens to live 10 minutes from me. He got like third or fourth place in the Red Bull Art of Motion competition, Kalen Chan. So he's one of the guys I use a lot. A lot of stunt people I use. We just started as like little people filming videos on our channel. And like one of the guys, Chris Ramo, he's Chris Pratt's stunt double. So like these people are going on to do bigger, better things, and then they'll come together and then they'll do another project with me. So it's just fun seeing where we started. They go off, do big Hollywood things, and we come together and we're still like playing and doing our own thing together. So it's just been fun seeing that process.
But I know we're almost at time. We'll throw out a couple more. Do you do any mentoring for veterans?
We launched during COVID. We had a lot of extra time. So we filmed a full online course called Homeschool. So that's like, if you go to Homeschool and type in Devin Super Champ, it should pop up. But really that's as far as I go. I've done some mentoring, but the reality is I'm so busy that if I have the extra time, I want to be with my family or be home. So I don't do like one-on-one mentoring per se, but I'm not like opposed to it. If someone needs something or has a question, like I'll gladly answer. And if someone like, hey, Devin, I'd love to volunteer on one of your shoots, awesome. Free crew member, I'll take it. And then they walk away better and more knowledgeable too, you know. So I'm open to all that stuff.
Okay, great. Well, I do know we are at time, and I think I got to all of the questions in the chat. A big round of applause, again, virtual round of applause to you, Devin. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your entire creative process with us today, what your timeline looks like, thoughts on life. We really, really appreciate it. I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Until next time.